your college performance does not relate to the National Football League. It never does.
They played side by side with each other, and he wasn't as good as Quinn Ewers. That's an issue. That's a major issue.
It wasn't that it wasn't as good as Quinn Ewers.
Ever got to Texas.
It wasn't that it wasn't as good as Quinn Ewers. It was Quinn Ewers' program, which Steve Sarkisian made very clear the entirety of the time that Arch Manning was in Austin. So for you to argue that because Ewers is a 7th-round pick, Arch Manning is not that good and not deserving of being first overall is asinine. It is wrong. It is incorrect.
He's going to be number 1 overall. My whole thing was I'm buying
you're doing your thing now where you double down on a take that is incorrect.
The best quarterback prospect to ever hit college football can't play
He's
over
not
a 7th-round pick.
There were 2
who didn't even play good
quarterback recruits in the history of the sport.
Quinn Ewers couldn't even play at Ohio State. He couldn't even play at Ohio State.
Quinn Ewers. Go look it up.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune in to Game Time Decisions weekdays on SportsGrid.
A new week starts right here, right now, bright and early on a Tuesday morning on the Early Line on SportsGrid. Live in studio together. He is Donnie right side. I am Ben Stevens. 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern time to start off this new week all across SportsGrid. And that includes SportsGrid.com, where you can find your favorite destination to consume everything all across the grid. We hope you had a lovely Memorial Day holiday weekend, enjoying some barbecues, hopefully some warm weather in all of the sports that we had this past weekend. A ton of playoff action to get you caught up on around the association. Game 4 last night in the Twin Cities of the Western Conference Finals. The Eastern Conference Finals, DRS, on the ice will continue. That a slight surprise. A full weekend of Major League Baseball and plenty more to recap bright and early on this Tuesday, following the long weekend up until 11 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah, a lot of stuff to get to here. Having some fun live in studio today, so a lot of hijinks over the next 3 hours. But also yesterday, Ben, a lot of cooking out, a lot of Blackstone flat-top grills, smash burgers out there getting after it. Ice cream was even on the docket, so we had a good time this weekend.
Oh, we had some smash burgers on the blacktop yesterday. Were you grilling?
I was, yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
I'm a big smash burger guy.
Yesterday was a beautiful day here in the Northeast. We had a great end to our holiday weekend. We hope the warm weather continues. The unofficial kickoff of summer. DRS ringing it in with a couple of burgers. I had a burger on Sunday.
Yeah.
Sensational.
Yeah.
Went on a hike, a little bit upstate New York. Had a lovely, lovely time. You know who is not having a lovely time right now? That would be the Minnesota Timberwolves, the team that is now taking a 3-1 series advantage after game number 4 of the Western Conference Finals. That would be the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder last night on the road in the Twin Cities, winning by 2, 128-126. And Donnie, it's an interesting thing to say that OKC was rather comfortable last night on the road in Minneapolis, despite not covering, as a 3-point road favorite. A total of 219. Skies way to the over as OKC opens up that 3-1 series advantage. And this game was largely within 2 possessions for a good majority of those final 2 quarters in the second half. And yet it always felt like the Timberwolves were playing from behind. That's because they were really from the 6-minute mark around that first quarter. Minnesota never led in this game except in the opening few minutes of that first quarter. OKC pretty much leading pole to pole last night in Minneapolis, now has that 3-1 series lead.
Yeah, it's important to note that what Ben was saying was like, you're at home. You want to come out strong out of the gate, Ben. First quarter, 37-30 right off the bat. You have a lead for the road team, and that's always a good thing to sort of quiet that crowd after that unbelievable performance in game number 3. But it's simple to me. Julius Randle, 5 points.
Yeah.
Not good enough. Your superstar, Anthony Edwards, 16 points, not good enough. Matter of fact, if you just told me that before you showed the game, hey, Donnie, here's what your two superstars are going to do, I would say with a 40-point blowout win the opposite direction for OKC. But the fact you got great bench performances by Alexander Walker, Dante DiVincenzo, even Naz Reid chipping in, and it still wasn't good enough. That was a great win for OKC because we talk about so many times, Ben, the number one overall seed sometimes need adversity. Boy, they got adversity in game number 3. Are we actually as good as we were? They came out and made a point in game number 4. Now looking to close out in a gentleman's sweep in 5 games. But again, your stars need to show up. They did not for the Timberwolves.
And that was the story, DRS. After 2 lopsided games in Oklahoma City, how would Minnesota respond on Saturday night in game number 3? Their first at home in Minneapolis. The Timberwolves do in a very large way. 42-point victory for Minnesota. The second largest margin of victory for the Timberwolves in franchise history in a playoff game. The 143 points scored by the T-Wolves, the most in franchise history in an NBA playoff contest. And DRS, as a part of the 143 scored over the weekend by the T-Wolves, it was Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle combining for 54. So when those two guys combined for just 21 points, and Julius Randle only plays 28 minutes because clearly there was something that Chris Finch was not a fan of in his performance last night, that is a sign of disaster. It really was the bench. 5 made triples for both Dante DiVincenzo and Nickeil Alexander Walker off the bench for the Timberwolves that kept Minnesota in the game. But again, playing from a disadvantage virtually for 40 of those 48 minutes last night on their own home floor. And when you get 95 points on the other side from the Thunder trio, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a 40-point performance and 1 rebound shy of a triple-double, that's a playoff career best for SGA, now our NBA MVP, and 34 points DRS for Jalen Williams, also a playoff career high with the 21 from Chet Holmgren. That's the recipe of success for the Thunder. We saw that on full display.
Step up, man. Step up. Usually your B players, or should I say B-roll players, step up at home as opposed to on the road. And you take a look at Jalen Williams, 34 points. Here's the interesting part about that. Those 2 big numbers, like 34 out of Williams. Yeah. They must have run away while he was in the game. -2 on the plus-minus here. You take a look at SGA, as you point out, almost a 40-point triple-double. What did that equate to? A +5, which tells you how well that bench was playing and really coming on strong for the Timberwolves. But I said it again. Number 1 overall seed, this is what the expectations are, them to win close games here. And also, again, not having Minnesota with the lead in the second half of that game, holding them at a distance the entire way through, and closing the game out at the free throw line and playing good defense. That's the sign of a champion. Win ugly, win close, it doesn't matter. Just win in the playoffs, and they're a game away now, Ben, here from playing for a championship.
Yes, they certainly are, getting back to the NBA Finals for the first time in nearly a decade and a half. And it's funny to say that the MVP nearly pulled off a 40-point triple-double, but his performance probably not the best on his team last night. Just 13 of 30 from the floor for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Not exactly his most efficient basketball game last night in Minnesota against the Timberwolves. Really, it was his teammate Jalen Williams who had that playoff career best, 34 points, burying 6 made threes, the most for Williams in any game, playoff, regular season, or otherwise, in his NBA career. And Donnie, there's been so many questions we have had about this Oklahoma City Thunder group, this core, led by Mark Daigneault, led by the MVP in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Not the talent, but when they have that playoff experience, we are seeing them learn and grow basically each and every time they take the floor throughout this postseason run. But also outside of SGA, who would be there for OKC when moments mattered most. We saw Jalen Williams have a terrible performance in game number 6 in Denver in that second-round series. Responded with a great performance in that 7th game to clinch that second-round series win for Oklahoma City. And when you have that Thunder trio last night, and you have Jalen Williams stepping up as a bona fide second option next to Gilgeous-Alexander, that's the recipe of a championship-caliber team.
No, it certainly is. And to be able to go on the road and shoot 50% from the floor in one of those games where you know Minnesota was going to throw it all at you, hoping they could tie this up and put the pressure back on OKC in a 3-game set as it moves back to Oklahoma City. But they weren't able to do that. And how about this? As a home team, the Minnesota Timberwolves, what have I told you before the game, Ben. They're going to shoot 51% from the floor, which included 44% from three-point range. That's supposed to be a victory, but it wasn't because the superstars showed up at the right time in this game for OKC, and that's just the way it's done. An entertaining game all the way through. It's had a ton of spread drama late in that. Did you get the 2.5? Did you get the threes here? Was it close at the end for you? Did you take the money line? And away you go. That's just sometimes the way it works out, but big-time win for OKC, looking to close this series out now in style.
And we're highlighting all that Oklahoma City pulled off last night. A lack of star power, of course, for Minnesota, which has been the story now in the 3 L's the Timberwolves have taken in the Western Conference Finals. Only one good game combined between Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards. It's when they scored a total of 54 points on Saturday in game number 3, leading to, in part, a 42-point blowout. But yesterday, DRS, 6 of 20 from the field combined for Randle and Edwards, 1 of 10 from beyond the arc. It was not a pretty game for Minnesota, and as DRS has described multiple times here, Oklahoma City now 1 win away from its first appearance in the NBA Finals in more than a decade. The odds makers expected this to be lopsided. We'll show you where the series stands with OKC up 3-1. Up next.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of 15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune in to Game Time Decisions weekdays on SportsGrid.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups? My tip? Try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Live right here on this Tuesday morning on the early line on SportsGrid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. A special edition on this Tuesday following a long holiday weekend. Live in person together up until 11 a.m. Eastern time. The Oklahoma City Thunder, just a 2-point win and not even covering on the road yesterday in Minneapolis. But, of course, a commanding 3-1 series advantage. One victory away from an appearance in the NBA Finals. And, Donnie, the Thunder were always a hefty favorite to win the West. Minus 375 entering this conference final series against Minnesota. Entering last night after getting drubbed by 42 even in game number 3. They were still a minus 1,000 favorite as that 3-point road favorite in Minneapolis. They take that 3-1 series lead. They head back home for game number 5 in Oklahoma City, needing just one outright win. The Thunder now a minus 7,000 favorite to win the Western Conference.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty shocking if they end up losing this series lead at this point, specifically after now having the next 2 to 3 games at home, if you even need a game number 7. And they're a heavy favorite we'll talk about here entering into game number 5. But that series price makes some sense. Like if you want the dog price at plus 2,000, go ahead and take it because you're hoping that you can win a game number 5, which then means the momentum's on your side for game 6. And then what are you relying on at that point? Anything can happen in a game number 7. Some guys are going to play great. Some guys won't play so great. And you let the chips fall at that point. But I don't think anybody believes that. And again, the impressive part was losing by 40 points, then coming back with a victory on the road. What would happen if you lost by 40 points, then double digits the next night? Like, oh, maybe OKC isn't as good as we thought they would be. Gutty win after a terrible effort in game number 3, minus 7,000. Am I taking that? No. But I'm certainly not taking the plus 2,000 saying, hey, now it's the Wolves' time to come back.
Yeah, there's not a lot of great value here in these numbers, at least from the series odds perspective. We'll tell you why when we compare it to what the numbers are for game number 5 tomorrow night in OKC in just a matter of moments. But again, I do want to go back to highlight the Thunder, who are a minus 7,000 favorite to win the Western Conference crown. These were our questions. With the lack of playoff pedigree, with a lack of postseason experience in these significant spots, catch up with Oklahoma City at any point throughout a playoff run where they were expected to win an NBA championship. They passed the Boston Celtics back in the middle of February as those NBA title favorites. They entered this round as a minus money favorite because of some of the chaos in the Eastern Conference to win that Larry O'Brien trophy. But we knew Minnesota, who had reached the Western Conference Finals for a second consecutive year, would provide a tough test. OKC seems likely to dispatch them now in 5 games. And I thought it was really cool because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was mic'd up, DRS, during game number 3. And pretty much Mark Daigneault, the head coach for Oklahoma City, said midway through that third quarter, all right, not our night. We're getting routed. We haven't been within a 25-point margin, it feels like, in the last quarter and a half. So he sat his starters. They basically punted on the result in Game 3, gearing up for Game 4. And what would that response be? What would the resilience be for the Thunder? One thing I found interesting from the betting stats perspective, 67% of the money on the spread, not backing Minnesota as a home underdog in Game 4, but expecting that bounce back for the Thunder, and OKC made good on at least an outright win, albeit a non-cover. OKC has shown us what you would expect out of a championship team pretty much every step throughout this playoff run.
Yes, and some of the key ingredients that you always want to talk about are how do you approach game number 4? Well, you know the crowd is going to be in a frenzy right off the bat, and my betting advantage yesterday was probably to take a look at and say, Minnesota, give me the 1.5, 2 points in the first half, figuring that they would need to come out strong, and that was the anticipation. But the fact that they didn't come out strong and not only lost the first quarter, but lost it by 7 points, that shows the sign of OKC where the coach is like, okay, you guys listen to me. We'll shut it down in game number 3. It's not that big of an issue at this point. We'll come back strong in game number 4. And they did exactly that because it wasn't really a back and forth. Even though it was a close game, 5-point lead here, 5-point lead for the other team, 5-point lead back. No, like you held them at arm's length the entire way in an emotional game number 4, which they had to win and had all the momentum coming off of game number 3. So looking at OKC from that vantage point, I love to see that because no matter how good a team you are, 68 wins in the regular season, you will face adversity. And if game 3 wasn't adversity, I don't know what you call it at that point. But coming out in a game number 4, instead of saying, we're young, it's no big deal, it's 2-2, it's a best of 3, handled their business, came away with a victory, and now can close out on their home court in a gentleman's sweep.
Last lead for the T-Wolves on their home court in game 4 came at the 6-minute and 57-second mark. of the first quarter. Again, it was tight. There wasn't many double-digit advantages. There wasn't many 15, 20-point leads in Game 4 last night. In fact, the entirety of the fourth quarter basically played within a two-possession basketball game, but OKC was really keeping Minnesota trailing from behind and playing at that arm's length. DRS, had we been here yesterday on a Monday previewing a Game 4 last night in the Twin Cities, I'm sure we would have had that conversation about OKC's resilience and where some value might have been if the Thunder, who were rather impressive in the opening two games, were going to win it in 5, as the odds makers expected after that opening rout of a 26-point margin for the Thunder in game number 1. We really, at that point, the most likely outcome was OKC in 5 games, pulling off the gentleman's sweep, entering last night a plus 115 price. So as we get ready for Game 5 tomorrow, where the Thunder can win in just 5 games in the Western Conference Finals, OKC back at home, 8.5-point home favorite, largest spread in favor of the Thunder in this series, and that updated moneyline price is now minus 355 to match what we expect from the series results, Oklahoma City in a gentleman's sweep.
Yeah, it is interesting, too, because you're taking a look at that huge margin, which rightfully so, but now you're just saying, all right, well, what's the difference here? We just saw game number 3, Minnesota absolutely torch OKC. Game number 4, close all the way down to the wire, which actually got the cover, depending on, plus 2.5, plus 3s, still would have covered fine. It was a 2-point win. But now you look at game number 5 and say, boy, that's a big difference here, because why? The home team does not want to have it as a game number 6, and then the pressure starts to flip. You want to handle your business on your home court, which OKC has done so many times.
Yeah.
But, as we like to say, if you want to try to make some long money here, it is minus 355, as Ben said, for game number 5. That's the series price, which means they'll just win that game and close it out. Game number 6, plus 540, which means OKC loses, but then wins on home court there for Minnesota. But if you want to get to a game number 7, which means if you had Minnesota knocking them off in game 5, game number 6 probably going to be hell on wheels again, which is going to be really close. Can you get it to a game number 7? Because the best part about that is, who cares who wins game 7? You just got to get there. A plus 710 price if you're feeling that frisky here on a Tuesday morning.
Listen, if you're believing in the Minnesota Timberwolves to at least force a game 6 and a return to the Twin Cities, there is plenty of plus money to be made. That plus 540 price for this to go to 6 games. You couple that with the plus 285 number on Minnesota to win Game 5 outright tomorrow in OKC. Tons of plus money around. We'll talk about the Eastern Conference Finals up next.
Your college performance does not relate to the National Football League. It never does.
They played side by side with each other, and he wasn't as good as Quinn Ewers. That's an issue. That's a major issue.
It wasn't that it wasn't as good as Quinn Ewers.
Ever got to Texas.
It wasn't that it wasn't as good as Quinn Ewers. It was Quinn Ewers' program, which Steve Sarkisian made very clear the entirety of the time that Arch Manning was in Austin. So for you to argue that because Ewers is a 7th-round pick, Arch Manning is not that good and not deserving of being first overall is asinine. It is wrong. It is incorrect.
He's going to be number 1 overall. My whole thing was I'm buying
you're doing your thing now where you double down on a take that is incorrect.
The best quarterback prospect to ever hit college football can't play.
He's
over
not
a 7th-round
There were
pick
2
who didn't even
perfectly
play
rated
good.
quarterback recruits in the history of the sport.
Quinn Ewers couldn't even play at Ohio State. He couldn't even play at Ohio State.
Quinn Ewers. Go look it up.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune in to Game Time Decisions weekdays on SportsGrid.
Live right here on a Tuesday morning on the early line on SportsGrid. A lot to get you caught up on, of course, for the long holiday weekend that was Memorial Day weekend. On Sunday night, maybe after a barbecue, you settled down to watch game number 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals in Indianapolis. And it seemed for most of that game, DRS, the Pacers were going to take a 3-0 series advantage, absolutely routing the New York Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. But for a third time in this playoff run for New York, they come back from down by as many as 20 points to win outright. Trailing by 20 late in the opening half, New York rallies in the second to win 106-100 in Indy for their first victory in the Eastern Conference Finals and to give this series a little bit of life. 106-100, the Knicks win outright as a slight point-and-a-half road underdog, around minus 102, plus 100 even money on that money line, and a total of 223 in a hook does stay well under. Again, the Knicks trailing by 20 points, 55-35, with just over 3 minutes remaining in that second quarter. The third time in this playoff run, New York has trailed by at least 20 points and won that basketball game outright. Those 3 20-plus point comebacks for the Knicks, the most we have seen ever, unsurprisingly, DRS, in a single postseason at NBA playoff history.
Yeah, it was really impressive, too, because that game looked like it was done. And then you're already starting to say at halftime into the third quarter, you know what? Who's leaving the Knicks next year? Is it Karl-Anthony Towns? Is it Jalen Brunson once out? Thibodeau's definitely getting fired. I can't believe how embarrassing it was where we finally had a pathway to winning a championship, at least getting to the NBA Finals for the Knicks, that it's going to get shut down in sweeping fashion. Showed a lot of heart on that basketball team to come back, because you can say two different things like, hey, it was our night. We led in the first quarter, second quarter, extended in the third quarter, won it in the fourth quarter. It was the opposite. They looked atrocious. That place was in a frenzy there, just like, sharks in the water, which was so much fun to watch from a Pacers perspective. And then it completely just flipped. And down the stretch, you got the stops. You made the amazing baskets. You closed out, and now you have life. The post-game press conference, like, the Pacers, hey, we let one slip away. We can't do that. But the Knicks going, you know what? We got to take things day to day, game for game, get a win when we can get one, and they got one in game number 3. I'm really interested to see the vibe in that building for Indianapolis, because nobody really is backing off saying, I don't think the Pacers can win the series. I still think they're the favorites, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But the fact that the Knicks came back, where we were expecting heading into the series a longer series, and we both thought that the Pacers would be the right side. Yeah. And if the Pacers win in 4, doesn't make us look like genius. Like, wow, like we thought this would be a tough, drawn-out struggle, and now you're seeing this game done in 4. Big-time game tonight, which I love to see. You just want to put guys in situations where it's like, you know what, let me sit down and watch this game to see how these superstars will provide that entertainment. The entertainment was all there in game number 3. First half for the Pacers, fourth quarter for the Knicks, 2-1 series, and away we go.
Teams trying to hold on to a 15 or 20-point lead throughout this NBA postseason all of a sudden has become this incredibly difficult task. We have now seen 6 comebacks in this NBA playoffs, just this single postseason, where a team has trailed by at least 20 points and won that game outright. The Knicks have done it more than anybody this postseason run or anybody in NBA playoff history 3 times. The opening 2 games of the second round in Boston, and on the road here in game number 3 against the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers, the cardiac comeback kids, as we have seen, have done that twice in this playoff run. No other team in NBA playoff history in a single postseason has pulled off a 20-plus point comeback more than once, and we have seen 2 teams do that here in this NBA playoff stretch. And Donnie, you talked about the Knicks probably sitting there midway through the third quarter at the halftime break and thinking, how do we change this team around? We got Karl-Anthony Towns. We got Mikal Bridges to be more of that bona fide contender in the Eastern Conference, and we might get swept by the Indiana Pacers. How does this all happen? One of those guys they were willing to ship away probably midway through the third quarter was Karl-Anthony Towns, who put together a masterful performance to lead that fourth quarter charge. 20 of his team-high 24 points for New York in that fourth and final quarter, leading to the 6-point road win.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, when you take a look at the Knicks, the way they play basketball, more old school, right? Get the ball in your playmakers' hands, let them go one-on-one and make some moves. And Jalen Brunson is one of the best in the NBA at absolutely doing that, which is such a contrast to see the Pacers getting out and trying to run 5-man basketball. Who's ever open gets the better shot, takes that good shot here at this point, and it just seemed like it wasn't working. We'll see if that same direction changes, because in that game, Brunson played 31 minutes, only had 23 points in that game, and you're right, Karl-Anthony Towns late in that game making clutch shot after clutch shot, but I know midway through it, hey, Mikal Bridges, stop shooting the basketball. Let somebody else have some run at it, as he finished 6 of 18. Love the way this game sets up tonight. We're going to go over some props a little bit later in the show, but we're looking at winner of this game, winner of the series, you could probably say, yeah.
I think it's a really good point, DRS. And Indiana, of course, has home floor advantage. They will be a slight favorite tonight in game number 4. We'll look at that on the other side of the break and where the Eastern Conference Finals exactly stands after what we saw in game 3. That's next.
Your college performance does not relate to the National Football League. It never does.
They played side by side with each other, and he wasn't as good as Quinn Ewers. That's an issue. That's a major issue.
It wasn't that he wasn't as good as Quinn Ewers.
Ever got to Texas?
It wasn't that he wasn't as good as Quinn Ewers. It was Quinn Ewers' program, which Steve Sarkisian made very clear the entirety of the time that Arch Manning was in Austin. So for you to argue that because Ewers is a 7th-round pick, Arch Manning is not that good and not deserving of being first overall is asinine. It is wrong.
It is incorrect. I told you he's going to be number 1 overall. My whole thing was I'm buying
you're doing your thing now where you double down on a take that is incorrect.
The best quarterback prospect to ever hit college football can't play.
He's
over
not,
a 7th-round
There were
pick
2
who didn't even
perfectly
play
rated
good.
quarterback recruits in the history of the sport.
Quinn Ewers couldn't even play at Ohio State. He couldn't even play at Ohio State.
Quinn Ewers. Go look it up.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune in to Game Time Decisions weekdays on SportsGrid.
We welcome you back to this Tuesday morning, live right here on the Early Line on SportsGrid. The New York Knicks come back from down by as many as 20 points late in the opening half to steal game number 3 on the road in Indianapolis and give us some life throughout the Eastern Conference Finals. As we get ready for game 4 tonight inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse in downtown Indy, we'll talk about that in just a matter of moments. There are a few things the Indiana Pacers have been known for throughout this playoff run. Of course, their own cardiac comebacks, as we saw in game number 1 inside Madison Square Garden, and a ton of balance in depth. We had talked about it for Indiana. In their first 10 wins in the NBA playoffs this year, including the opening 2 games of this series, 9 of those 10 victories, at least 6 guys had scored in double figures. On Sunday night in game number 3, only 4 players for the Pacers reaching that double-digit margin, the fewest amount for Indiana in any of their playoff games so far.
Yeah, and I'm really impressive there overall because when you take a look at the Indiana Pacers, the way they're attacking the basketball, it's been free-flowing. A lot of guys shooting three-point shots, a lot of guys out in transition. And as I talked about before the break, Ben, the transition for the New York Knicks really isn't in there. Their transition is get Jalen Brunson the ball, go one-on-one and make it happen. And it's worked all the way through the playoffs up until the series and up until really late in game number 3 where they finally broke through. But for me, as I take a look at the series as it winds down, like the Knicks, how about this, too? Previous game they just played, 37 minutes, 33, 29, and 31. Like Tibbs is now getting questioned after, like, hey, man, look, your bench has guys playing 34 minutes and 13 minutes and 15 minutes and 11 minutes here. Look at how much fresher you can be at the end of basketball games. Maybe that is a change here because you are on equal footing. It's not like, hey, we played a back-to-back. Indiana didn't have to play a back-to-back and they're fresh. Like, no, you're playing the games on the same day and how you're handling the bench, which might be a sign of the times to come for the Knicks that says you don't have to play 43 minutes, everybody in the lineup. Let some of the other guys off the bench get some shine. And how about Josh Hart going to the bench as opposed to starting, trying to have that little bit of a kickstart here? Yeah. Worked in game number 3 in the second half. You can't, man, Hart goes to the bench. They were tremendous in the first. No, they were terrible in the first half. But it worked out in their favor. Play more bench guys here. Stay fresher and see what happens at this point.
Of course, that was a big change for Tom Thibodeau in game number 3. The big guys up front, Karl Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson, each getting the start. Josh Hart coming off the bench and doing what Josh Hart does. 8 points, 10 boards, plenty of crucial rebounds in clutch moments, and 4 dimes as well. So where does this series stand after 3 games? DRS, we have seen this series so far. In 2 of the first 3 feature ridiculous comebacks. The Pacers down by as many as 17 points, basically midway through the fourth quarter in game number 1, down by 14 with 2:45 remaining in regulation, and come all the way back to win in OT. The Knicks trailing by 20 in that opening half and rallying for a victory in game 3. So it's a very interesting series where Indiana still has the control. They've got one final game on their home court, at least that we know of, and they have that 2-1 series advantage. And they were the better team for 43 of 48 minutes on Sunday night in game number 3. But have the New York Knicks, the series favorites, entering the Eastern Conference Finals, and the victors in game 3, given us some life. Indiana entering game 4 on its home floor tonight, still a minus 220 favorite to win the Eastern Conference crown. DRS, do you agree with the numbers that you see on your screen?
I think it's light. I think the minus 220 honestly is light here on the Pacers because understand they're going to be a favorite tonight in their game. They're up 2-1. They win this game and they're favored to do so. That's a 3-1 series lead with a couple games left and still a game number 6 in your back pocket at home should you even lose on the road in game number 5. But also understand the series as the way it's gone now. There's been a couple crazy comebacks from each team. It's not like, hey, we dominated all the way through and then just melted down in the fourth quarter. It'll be interesting to see how both of these teams come out tonight because now you're breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief because no matter what happens, you're still going to have a game number 5. But if you're the Knicks, like, whoo, great, man, got game number 3. Now it's okay to lose game number 4. No, series will be over, in fact, at that point. I want to see how both of these teams, who has the lead at the end of the first quarter? Who has the lead at halftime? Who comes out sizzling here? And also understand this, if a team is up 15 or 20 points, both of these teams have shown the capabilities in this series to come back from crazy deficits, specifically late in the game and close out situations. But I look at that minus 220 price and say to myself, that's probably a number I want to bite on. So, well, what about the Knicks at plus 184? Sure, they win this game. They're going to win the series possibly. And also, they'll be the favorites if they win the game tonight back as a role reversal in the series. But for me, that minus 220, up 2-1 for the Pacers on their home court, honestly seems light.
And DRS, you mentioned it. Everybody that played for the New York Knicks in game 3 off the bench for Tom Thibodeau, a positive plus minus. Of course, the depth, as we often have seen it, for a team here against New York, or certainly just for this Indiana team, has favored the Pacers. Aaron Nesmith, injured midway through that third quarter, did return in the fourth quarter, but he is listed as a game-time decision for his status tonight for game number 4. Again, I still think when you look at the numbers, the same way I would have approached this series at the very jump, is where I think you can still find some value. Now, it was Indiana as the series underdog in that series spread at a pretty chalky price to take the Pacers with a game and a half. But here, DRS, Indiana land a game and a half, which means they have to win by at least game number 6, which, of course, if we even get to that stage, would be in Indianapolis, is minus 118. But I don't mind paying more than a $2 minus money price on minus 220 just for the Pacers to win this series. And it's interesting now, after New York rallies for that Game 3 win, that the most likely outcome in terms of the duration of the Eastern Conference Finals is back to 7 games at plus 146. Donnie, we saw the Pacers last year in the second round win a Game 7 inside Madison Square Garden, where the Knicks this postseason are just 3-5.
And actually, you take a look at the series total games prices here, right? Game 5 is at a plus 290 price a little bit elevated. But if you look at Game 6, Ben, plus 152, Game 7, plus 146. If you're looking for a betting pattern, you're just looking to try to win some money or say, let me get plus money, I'm going to take Game 6 and Game 7 at this point because the series doesn't end tonight if the Knicks do lose. You go back to Madison Square Garden, what happens there? I think you're going to have one of those last-stand efforts. And also, what are the Knicks favored? 5 or 6 points in that game? And then you just win that game. It's plus money no matter how it finishes. Then you probably root for game number 6 because it's a better price than game number 7. But that's the way I see it because you're at one of those vantage points where it can't end tonight, regardless of which team wins. But game number 5 in the Garden, can the Indiana win? Yeah, they've already won a game in the Garden here. It's actually 2 games, in the Garden to start this series. But I think this series is going at least game 6 or game 7, plus 152, plus 146. Take it both sides. You just land on a game number 6, you got an automatic winner in your back pocket.
Plenty of plus money available. In DRS, we would think that if Indiana ends up winning the Eastern Conference Championship, that Tyrese Halliburton, at least right now, the favorite to win Eastern Conference Finals MVP. He still has that dramatic moment in the game-tying shot at the end of regulation in the opening game of this set. Jalen Brunson, only 23 points in game number 3. It was Karl Anthony Towns as the leading scorer. Pascal Siakam has also been great so far in this series, at least 17 points in all 3 games. Of course, that masterful 39-point performance in game number 2, winning that one inside Madison Square Garden. But narrative-wise, it still feels like Tyrese Halliburton is the front runner, and justifiably so. It may be an additional bump for the Halliburton family tonight. Free Pops. Pops is now free. John Halliburton, we got the news yesterday, will officially be allowed to attend game number 4 tonight in Indianapolis, but high away from the court, maybe not sitting courtside on the baseline. Again, DRS, he will be up in a suite tonight inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Could that be a differentiating factor, as the question is asked there, for Indiana to take that 3-1 series?
But here's the question that I actually want to have here. And this means, like, if who you know, who are you, and what this is about. Any fan who buys courtside seats, let's just say you were in Madison Square Garden, and you're just a casual fan. You dropped $30,000 to sit there. And after the game was over, and just to say, instead of the Knicks losing the first 2, that they won game number 2. And you as a fan went out and stood in front of Halliburton and taunted him. And the police took you away. You know what the Knicks would say? You are never allowed to attend a game again. Maybe not just in the Madison Square Garden, but in the NBA for that. So his pops goes, I'm going to confront, which could have called an unbelievable melee at the end of the game. Stay away for a couple games, and then you're allowed back at this point. If the common citizen is doing that, he never can attend an NBA game ever again.
He's probably also arrested.
And in jail, yes, correct, yes. Terroristic threats, all that stuff.
Combat an NBA player. John Halliburton has now been freed for game number 4 tonight in Indianapolis, but high away from that hardwood tonight.
He'll be on camera.
We'll talk about game 4 and where the NBA championships odds are up next.
Buy or sell, Devers will be traded this season. Let's also not forget that there's $300 million on the table due to Devers, which eliminates him from, what would you say, like 17 teams?
Oh, I would think more than 17, maybe 27. Oh, that's a joke. But how many teams could afford him? All right, 5, 6. How many teams need a third baseman who can't play third base? You know, how many people want to deal with his attitude? He hasn't come off looking good at any of this. Whether you believe he should have anyway, he doesn't look good at this. Will he be traded? No, he won't be traded. The salary alone makes it highly unlikely. He's a great hitter. No doubt he can hit. But other than that, there's too many between the money and the attitude and no really position for him here. He's not getting dealt anytime soon.
Buy or sell, if the season ended today, Hunter Brown would win the American League Cy Young Award.
Hunter Brown has been fantastic. All right, the guy that Craig's teasing, by the way, is Tariq Skubal of the Detroit Tigers here, who's certainly right up there with them. Max Fried for the Yankees has had a fantastic season. They finally lost a start where he pitched in against Seattle the other day. They'd won every start. He's been fantastic. The season ended today. Would Hunter Brown win the American Cy Young Award? I certainly couldn't argue it if he did. That being said, he's going up against Skubal, who won it last year, going up against Fried of the Yankees. My guess is he would, that he'll need a year. You understand what I'm saying? He needs a year before he can get that kind of recognition if he's tied with somebody. If he's clearly ahead, then I think he would win here. But as of right now, would he win it? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say it would be probably Max Fried.
Fantasy Sports Today. Weekends starting at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Only on SportsGrid.
The Indiana Pacers, still with a 2-1 series lead, will host the New York Knicks in game number 4 tonight in the Eastern Conference Finals in Indianapolis. In DRS, the Pacers were an ever so slight 1.5 favorite for game number 3, around minus 118, minus 120 on that money line. Indiana tonight, a 2-point favorite in game number 4. The biggest move was a total of 223.5, 224 for game number 3 that stayed well under, and now the total tonight dropping to 220 and a hook. We'll dive deeper into this game throughout the entirety of our second hour and really hour number 3 together here live in person in studio. But your initial thoughts on game number 4 tonight of the Eastern Conference
Again,
Finals.
you're looking at that price point and you're saying, like, how can I take the Indiana Pacers at this point? Basically, just to win the game, it's a bucket right now. Total's 220.5, and I technically would agree with it. But again, if you are looking at that line saying, ooh, that seems a little bit short, sometimes it is buyer beware, which I didn't check the FanDuel Sportsbook right now, but I'm probably pretty sure most of the money is now coming in on the Indiana Pacers based on, ooh, they let that game slip away, and now they just got to win this game. It's only by a bucket, and we understand that because the flip is going to be, if the Knicks win this game, what that price point's going to be for game number 5, which is going to be incredible. Hey, Pacers were favored. Now they're getting 5 and 6 points in Madison Square Garden. I still do like the Pacers, but again, that heavy ticket count line opened up at 2.5 and dips to 2 at FanDuel. That always gives me a pause right there to say, ooh, maybe I need to step back and see it. But right now, I'm with the general public saying I think it's an Indiana Pacers number, and I would take it that way, but there's a reason why the Knicks are only getting 2 points.
56% of the bets right now on the spread actually backing the home favorites. That would be Indiana. I was slightly surprised by that DRS, just based on where the New York Knicks have been throughout this playoff run. I was also slightly surprised that 67% of the money entering game number 4 last night in Minneapolis was backing OKC as a road favorite. I really did think a lot of that public betting love would be on the underdogs who had just pulled off in case of Minnesota, a 42-point win in game 3, and New York, a dramatic 20-point comeback once again in game number 3 in Indianapolis. Not the case. I agree with the public. I also agree with the odds makers. I think the Pacers are the right side. I believe we will see that resolve tonight. But I expect it to be close. And based on how this series has played out in both the opening game and game 3 in Indy, you're probably going to have a live betting opportunity at multiple points in tonight's game to find some wagering success. Let's look at the NBA title odds right now, with Oklahoma City 1 win away from a berth in the NBA Finals and what we expect in the Eastern Conference, but it's still not being the teams we expected to be there in the first place, the Celtics and the Cavaliers. The Thunder now a minus 390 favorite to win that Larry O'Brien trophy. Donnie, there is no issue with Oklahoma City being booked as the front runner. Heck, with OKC being booked as even a strong minus money favorite. I think the question now becomes for the Thunder, what is that exact price going to be for the NBA Championship Series once it is set?
Yeah, it's not going to be minus 390 because you're looking at right now OKC is probably going to close out the Minnesota Timberwolves, but we just don't know who's going to close out. It's going to be the Pacers or the Knicks. Now, the Knicks aren't as highly priced here as the Pacers, and rightfully so. They're down 2-1 and being an underdog in game number 4. That gives the advantage to the Pacers. Am I looking at that Oklahoma City line saying, oh, man, do I think they win the championship? Yes, but is it price appropriate? Do you want to lay close to a $4 price on OKC, or is there something that you'd rather take and say, I can see a comeback from the New York Knicks? Man, you know if the Knicks make the finals, they're not going to be 11-1 to win the NBA Finals in a straight-up matchup with Oklahoma City. But the question is, do you think the Knicks are going to win that game tonight? If they do, it's probably a great price point, because if the Knicks do win that game tonight, Ben, I think the Knicks will win this series because they have home court advantage back. They just have to win, on their home court and take care of business. And even if they win game number 5, they can still close out in game number 6. But for me, I still look look at that Pacers price because I do think the Pacers win the series. I've said that before the series started, and 6-1 is a nice price. But I do think Oklahoma City wins the championship. It's one of those, Ben, where if you can say, okay, Pacers, Oklahoma City, NBA Finals. Can the Pacers steal game number 1 on the road against OKC? And that really puts you in a ticket position where you can cash out for a profit at that point. I think Oklahoma City wins. I don't want to take the minus 390 price. I do think that price will shorten up, but I do think the Pacers will be there in the finals because I think they win tonight and end up beating the Knicks in the series.
Again, my approach to Indiana, whether it's been in the Eastern Conference Finals or for the NBA championship, was taking the Pacers at a plus 900 price after they had clinched their second round series against Cleveland in only 5 games, and of course expecting the Knicks to knock off the Celtics, who were then shorthanded without Jason Tatum. So that 9-1 price for me is now plus 600. It will be shorter if/when Indiana reaches that NBA championship series. Of course, the Pacers trying to get back there for the first time in a while. The Thunder trying to get to the NBA Finals and 1 win away from doing so for the first time since 2012. More big news out of Indiana basketball, of course, DRS over the weekend. But now in the WNBA, Caitlin Clark is going to be out for multiple weeks, at least 2 weeks, with a left quad strain. That was the report yesterday. Caitlin Clark to miss at least a few weeks, DRS, dealing with a quad injury that she suffered in Saturday afternoon's matchup against the New York Liberty.
Yeah, and the key part about that tweet is minimum of 2 weeks. So you know it's going to be an extended period of time, so you're probably looking at 3, maybe even up to a month. And you might say an NBA season, Ben, or a Major League Baseball season, or an NFL. All right, well, you'll be back for the stretch run. Like, this really would be the stretch run if you miss a month of WNBA action, which isn't that long of a season overall. It's devastating news, not just to the Fever. Hopefully they can still make the playoffs because we want to watch great players in great moments in the playoffs. But just from a WNBA perspective, you're coming into the season with a lot of mojo, a lot of momentum, and Caitlin Clark is the reason for that, along with, again, a lot of great players. But now you're going to take her out of the national spotlight, which you know the WNBA probably had multiple games of her lined up on national stages here, that's not going to be there. And quite frankly, a lot of those eyeballs, they're going to stray away now.
41 of 44 games for the Fever this year on national television. We will see what the response is for the WNBA as a whole. Still a lot of great talent out there, so keep an eye on the W. Of course, that goes without saying. What was the reaction in the odds market? Well, the New York Liberty, the reigning WNBA champs, in a controversial ending in Indianapolis on Saturday, did edge out the Fever. Sabrina Ionescu burying a couple of clutch free throws. No foul called on the other side as Caitlin Clark was attempting a game-winning or at least game-tying shot at the end of regulation. The Liberty are off to a perfect 3-0 start. They're plus 175. Their price a little bit shorter. Indiana's number to win the WNBA title moving back ever so slightly, but this is why the Fever made their off-season moves to acquire a ton of talent around Caitlin Clark. CC entered the weekend a minus money favorite to win WNBA MVP. Now it's Minnesota's Nafisa Collier at minus 180. More than deserving. The Lynx off to a perfect start. More on the early line up next.
Buy or sell, Devers will be traded this season. Let's also not forget that there's $300 million on the table due to Devers, which eliminates him from, what would you say, like 17 teams?
Oh, I would think more than 17, maybe 27. That's a joke, but how many teams could afford him? All right, 5, 6. How many teams needed a third baseman who can't play third base? You know, how many people want to deal with his attitude? He hasn't come off looking good in any of this. Whether you believe he should have anyway, he doesn't look good at this. Will he be traded? No, he won't be traded. The salary alone makes it highly unlikely. He's a great hitter. No doubt he can hit. But other than that, there's too many between the money and the attitude and no really position for him here. He's not getting dealt anytime soon.
Buy or sell, if the season ended today, Hunter Brown would win the American League Cy Young Award.
Hunter Brown has been fantastic. All right, the guy that Craig's teasing, by the way, is Tariq Skubal of the Detroit Tigers here, who's certainly right up there with them. Max Fried for the Yankees has had a fantastic season. They finally lost a start where he pitched in against Seattle. They'd won every start. He's been fantastic. The season ended today with Hunter Brown winning the American Cy Young Award. I certainly couldn't argue it if he did. That being said, he's going up against Scooble, who won it last year, going up against Fried of the Yankees. My guess is he wouldn't, that he'll need a year. You understand what I'm saying? He needs a year before he can get that kind of recognition if he's tied with somebody. If he's clearly ahead, then I think he would win here. But as of right now, would he win it? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say it would be probably Max Fried.
Fantasy Sports Today. Weekends starting at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Only on SportsGrid.
It's been a long time since we were live here on the early line on SportsGrid. Of course, a long holiday weekend. We were off Saturday, Sunday, even yesterday, Memorial Day, Monday. So a ton to get you caught up on all around the sports landscape from the weekend that was. DRS, today is Tuesday, May 27th. We are officially 100 days away from the start of the 2025 NFL season. That is Thursday, September 4th, 2025 in Philadelphia at Lincoln Financial Field, the home of the reigning Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. No replica Lombardis in studio for you. That's kind of sad.
Nah, just keep it all right here. Yeah. It's up in the mindset, and the champions will be out there sooner than later. In the heart, of course, of this. But also understand this. Like, this is the last week of May, Ben.
Yeah.
The reason why I bring this up is June starts next week. July is football month in the NFL.
For sure it is.
So we are now looking at roughly 5 weeks until football season, which is absolutely incredible. And that's what I'm so excited about. Usually it's the dark days that we talk about, like, oh, post-football season. Look, we love the NBA playoffs. We're enjoying that now. We love, obviously, NCAA, Sweet 16s, Final Fours, championships, March Madness, the whole thing entail. But the fact I'm usually like saying, man, it's taking so long for football to get here. Like, we actually, the first time ever is we have preseason games in July, but you start training camp in July.
Yeah.
Hard Knocks is going to start to get fired up and get underway. Yeah. Like, I'm enjoying this. Like, again, next week is June. Make it through June. You are in football season.
There's no doubt about it.
Incredible.
DRS. Also, at the college football level, we are going to have Media Day starting even early in July, basically the week following that July 4th holiday. It still feels like we have a long time because it is still the month of May. It is not all that far away. And maybe your favorite NFL team is currently in OTAs, about to start OTAs on this Tuesday, or if you have a younger rookie head coach, you've already completed your voluntary OTAs. Your off-season calendar already underway. A team in the Steel City starts their OTAs today. By the name of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Mason.
In quarterback number one at the moment would be Mason Rudolph. Aaron Rodgers was some event this weekend. I don't know. I saw outside. I assumed ayahuasca was in the hunt and was asked by fans at what appeared to be a music festival where he would play in 2025. DRS, the Pittsburgh Steelers about to begin their offseason program in full with OTAs today, and yet Aaron Rodgers is not out there. Are they just going to wait for Rodgers? Would it be training camp? Do they even want Aaron Rodgers in-house any longer?
Yes, he will be their quarterback, but here's where you make a deal with the devil once again. When you're in the NFL and you're trying to get a leg up on the competition, which in your own division is Lamar Jackson. Now he's got to learn a new playbook. No, he doesn't. It's been there forever. Joe Burrow's got to learn. No, he doesn't have to learn a new playbook in Cincinnati. Those guys understand. They have their matchups that they like. They have their playbooks that they like. And Aaron Rodgers out here seemingly, and we don't want to delve into the personal life because you're like, oh, somebody's a family member may be dealing with cancer or something else in the equation. But also you have an understanding that when you're new to a football team, every rep matters. Is he going to parachute in at the end of June? Like, hey, everything's fine. And how's that going to work out for your team? You want a guy invested. It's the same way, Ben, when we started the offseason itself, and I said to Aaron Rodgers, he should be in front of football teams telling them, money is not an object here. Matter of fact, sign me to the vet minimum. I'm going to prove to you how good a quarterback I am, and we'll let the chips fall after that. And it just feels like he's like, I want to play, but I want to play only on my terms. And if I hold your franchise hostage like they're doing with the Steelers, you'll bend over backwards. I'll eventually be there. How is that going to work out in a positive stance for the Pittsburgh Steelers? There's no, Mason Rudolph is not your quarterback in Pittsburgh. Yeah. We know they're waiting on the other shoe to drop. But when you are the quarterback waiting for your own shoe to drop, going like, I can probably ride this out right up to a training camp, and they'll love me just being in camp at this point. That's ridiculous, man. Like, if Rodgers should be in OTAs and ready to go, and maybe I have a different outlook on the Steelers. But the fact that they're tying up all of their product in Aaron Rodgers when he's going like, look, I got a lot of vacation time I want to use before I show up is incredible. You haven't been there for 15 years.
8.5 is the win total for Pittsburgh, of course, in the 18 years under Mike Tomlin. Never fewer than 8 wins. Always a winning record, a playoff berth in 4 of the last 5 seasons, but just getting to the postseason, DRS, just winning 9 games in 2025. Of course, the Steelers, that's not the answer for this franchise. In desperate need of winning a playoff game or making a deeper playoff run for the first time since 2016. We also saw some history on the ice in the Stanley Cup postseason come to a close last night. The Carolina Hurricanes, DRS, snapped a 15-game losing skid in the conference finals, surviving in Sunrise with a 3-0 win over the Panthers to avoid being swept in the Eastern Conference
That's
Finals.
An incredible streak that finally came to an end. And you wanted that streak to come to an end in game number 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals, so you actually have a lead in the series. The fact that you got it in game number 4, only to maybe survive another 24 to 48 hours, tough scene. But at least they got one off their back.
At least they got one.
Yeah.
That's important for the Canes. Hour number 2 comes away up next.